Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to today's podcast. We have convened again after a weekish, maybe, to discuss another film which we had planned to discuss a while back, along with another film. Like this was supposed to be a comparison between two films, but the other film got forgotten by critics. So we and awards series, so even I'm forgetting it for now.
Oh, a
Anyways,
lot of films have been forgotten by the
yes,
awards.
yes,
Let's
we
not
will
get
get
started on
to
that.
we'll get started on that later. So, as you have
Yeah.
guessed, one of our guests is Aryan, or guest. Well, I mean, he's not a guest, but we have a regular collaborator Aryan with us today, and a new guest who's listened to our podcast before, and we've connected before on Letterboxd. So this is Varun. He's he's a final year postgrad student in English literature. That's correct, Varun.
Yeah, it is. Hi. Thank you so much for having me, firstly.
Yeah.
As Dhruv pointed out, I'm a final year postgrad English literature student, a movie lover for the better part of a decade at this point, and
Yep.
a massive fan of the man whose film we're going to be discussing today.
Every one of my movies is a personal movie. I don't make films that I don't consider to have something of myself left behind in them.
So the person in question is Steven Spielberg, of course. His newest film is The Fabelmans that released in India, what, last week, did it? Or
Yeah,
before?
last
It's
week.
Last week?
been weird, yeah.
It's been weird. Why so?
So it expanded. It officially released last week on 10th or something,
Mm-hmm.
but it's slowly expanding by this initiative by a theater chain group of
Okay.
showing screenings for these Oscar-nominated films
Yes, yes,
across
yes. I
next week.
saw this. I saw a mail from Inox Cinemas saying what all they are showing, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
a paltry selection of films that you're getting. Except for The Fablemans, I saw The Whale, which I'm not a fan of. So I
Yeah.
guess so. Yeah. Anyways, that's a separate matter. Today we are going to be kind of celebrating Steven Spielberg, like in general, and sort of going specifically to talk about The Fablemans, which I think all of us like to varying degrees, but we do like it. So there's not like none of us is gonna be mean about it. Uh, but uh, but yeah, no, I would first start in general about Spielberg, your introductions to Spielberg. I think that's a good way to sort of get it started, and then we'll dive directly into the film with spoilers, which
Mm.
Fablemans is a
Spoiler alert, he
semi-autobiographical.
made it. He's one of the most successful filmmakers of
Yeah,
our
like what
time.
do you like? Spielberg is a genius. That's the like a filmmaking genius, but there's a lot more to it. Like the film is more complex than it may appear. I feel, and that's the whole whatever thing to it. But no,
Yeah.
go ahead. Introductions to Spielberg, guys. Varun, you can go. You can get us started.
So 2011, The Adventures of Tintin opens in India before it opens anywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were huge fans of the original comics
Yeah.
by Air, and we go to the movies, and I'm stunned because this is 3D. This is before I started getting a headache with
Mm-hmm.
those 3D glasses,
Yes.
and I was absolutely mesmerized that you could do this in animation,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really the introduction to Spielberg because by then he had started doing the serious dramas as well,
Yep.
and we weren't really going to understand War Horse or Lincoln at that age.
I've
But
never seen War Horse. Have you? Is that
no,
no?
not gotten onto it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was a film that to me is the perfect masala movie actually
Okay.
because yeah,
It's an interesting
it
way to put it. Yeah.
marries like sort of great music and like
Yes.
adventure and like it's just fun,
Mm-hmm.
and Tintin's a bit of a nihilist, and it's got a dog, and at that time we had a little dog as well, and
Yeah.
I could just picture myself as Tintin because I didn't know how old the guy was,
Yeah.
and I think I subsequently ended up doing like a project on the film
Mm-hmm.
also much later in life.
Yeah.
But after that was actually Catch Me If You Can, which was sort of the look see into Spielberg and how
Mm-hmm.
what sort of role family plays. Because that way Tintin is a fairly impersonal film.
Mm-hmm.
He is not there's no part of it that's distinctly Spielbergian, for lack of a
Yes.
better term. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very much a fan service thing, though it's done spectacularly well.
Yeah.
But Catch Me If You Can was like moving and it was fun and it was
Mm-hmm.
sort of At
This
that
is
time, you only knew.
2002, is it? Or something like that?
Yeah. Catch Me If You Can
Early
came out
2000s.
2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2001 2, because this
Yeah.
is DiCaprio right after Titanic, like in the
Yes.
immediate sort of phase.
Mm-hmm.
And Spielberg also just coming out of having produced Sam Mendes' Road to Perdition.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
here again, like that had Paul Newman, this had Christopher Walken and
Mm-hmm.
Martin Sheen, those guys.
Yeah.
And I must have watched it as a 13-year-old, and
Mm-hmm.
it's again a very nice blend of sort of family drama,
Yeah.
and there are sort of hints of it if you want, or rather, it picks up from Spielberg's life,
Yeah.
the elements that we do see in the Fabelmans as well.
Yeah.
And it's also really just a fun film. It's Tom Hanks and DiCaprio going
Caper,
toe
right?
to
A
toe.
comedy, like a whatever,
Yeah, a
old-fashioned
caper. Yeah,
caper almost, which is
yeah,
a
definitely.
rarity in general. I think and I think I remember this is my like whatever foggy memory going about it is basically that it is just a really good time at the cinemas, which is what he is generally known for, and I think that's a I remember it as that, but yeah, no, go ahead. Those are your sort of intros that way then. The
Intros, but they were not like conscious. Those are
Mhm.
just the first films of Spielberg that
You
I remember
watched,
watching.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first movie I went to see because it was Spielberg was
Mm.
Bridge of Spies. Because
Yeah.
in that year I had just watched Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List because I was
Mm-hmm.
going through a World War II phase. I
Yeah.
don't think I've gotten out of it yet, to be honest. And
It's a fascinating phase to be in always, I feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
and sort of Bridge of Spies was again just terrifically moving drama, and those it has very little of again Spielberg, but
Mm.
it takes a story that his father told him. There's that
Yeah.
great DGA chat he has with
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese about
Mm-hmm.
Bridge of Spies, and I really came out of that film rooting for Mark Rylance to win an Oscar because it
Yeah.
was such a terrific performance, and he
Yeah.
did win. It was an
Yeah.
upset
He was
majority.
like people were very pissed that year, huh, because I think Sylvester Stallone.
Stallone, yeah, he
Stallone
did
was
win
the
for
For
Creed.
one.
Creed, yeah.
Yeah, for Creed. Yes, I remember.
Mm.
No, Bridge of Spies is one of. So I've been sorry if I'm cutting you off. Tell me
No, no.
if you want to button that way. But Bridge of Spies is my sort of new Spielberg. Like that was the one where I had heard a lot about Spielberg and I had watched a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah,
But I watched Bridge of Spies when I started to really get into movies, and I was like, wow, like just the way everything sort of gets simple story told in the most elegant way possible, if that's the way to put it. And it had, I remember, at least it didn't have the what some of the criticisms related to his films have been, the cheesiness, the sentimentality. It
yeah,
had the
It
sentimentality, but it
was
was
surprisingly very restrained
very
while even the
reserved in
performance.
its exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, the Mark Rylance performance is so reserved that
yeah.
yeah,
it plays off well from the Tom Hanks, Frank
Mm.
Capra personality that he has
yeah,
in general. So I
Mm.
think that I remember Bridge of Spies a lot, and it's co-written or at least has the Coens have writing credits on it. So I
yeah,
guess that sort of humor comes into it a little bit
yeah.
also. So it's a very interesting. I mean, again like you, I'm super into the sort of world. This is World War II also, right? Like I
No,
remember.
this Cold
No,
War.
Cold
This is
War.
like
Sorry, yes, Cold War.
middle of the
Yes,
Cold War.
that
Yeah,
that sort of phase in history, and then sort of how again it's a very deft is probably a good way to
yeah,
describe his filmmaking actually, uh way of sort of him putting together a drama which is complicated actually, like at the crux, like it may seem very good guy, bad guy, good guy, sort of like that, but it's always a bit more to his work. And there are some ideas of having to juggle your work with your family, which is something that will keep coming back, I think, in a lot of his
yeah,
work. So yeah, I think Bridge of Spies is kind of my like also like intro in a sense to him, because I feel like that's where I was like, wow, I want to watch more Spielberg from this point
yeah,
on. Like look back, of course I had watched Saving Private Ryan, which I definitely need to revisit. I had watched Schindler's List, which I definitely need to revisit. So like all
yeah,
those sort of things are there, but yeah, like I mean, for me, I think for me the two films that kind of are sort of big definers, I sense,
yeah.
in that sense, are this Bridge of Spies and Jaws, of course, because well,
If
I watched
if I
Jaws
may sort
after
of,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead, go ahead.
yeah. So I like what you said about juggling the personal and the professional,
Yep.
But I think, given that it released in 2015, so the world is starting to move towards the right and towards, a very
Yep.
violent form of nationalism.
Hmm.
It also does a fairly beautiful bit of, patriotic commentary, as it were, which is
Yep.
that scene in a bar between Scott Shepherd and Tom
Yep.
Hanks.
Yep.
And Tom Hanks is like, what makes us Americans? And he's
Yep.
like, it's one thing, it's the rule book.
Yep.
And it's just one of the most, like you said, simple scenes.
Yep.
And it's got that Coen-esque wit, which you see right up top
Yep.
in
Yeah.
that scene about the accident.
Yep.
And but it's sort of making such a tremendous point at the same time
Yep.
that
Yep.
you're not you don't have to do certain things to prove
Yes.
your
Exactly.
patriotism or your love
Yep.
for your country. Yeah.
Yep.
Your agent, Hoffman, yeah?
Yeah.
German extraction.
Yeah, so?
My name's Donovan. Irish, both sides. Mother and father. I'm Irish. You're German. But what makes us both Americans? Just one thing. One. The rule book. We call it the Constitution, and we agree to the rules, and that's what makes us Americans. It's all that makes us Americans, so don't tell me there's no rule book, and don't nod at me like that, you son of a bitch.
Aryan, go ahead. What is your Spielbergian love?
So I grew up watching Hollywood cinema and most of the well-known Western films on CDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the DVDs that I frequently popped in was obviously, like a lot of Indians, Jurassic Park, Jaws,
Yes.
and all these classics,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Films that basically brought the very word blockbuster cinema into existence, and
Yep.
films that have penetrated throughout the world and made Spielberg a household name.
Yep.
And I think my first Spielberg on-screen theater experience was watching Jurassic Park, because it was re-released during one of its 20 or 25-year anniversary,
Okay.
Wow.
and that was my first film by Spielberg that I watched in a theater. And just right after that, Tintin was released in
Mm.
2011. And my school, I was quite young back then.
Yep.
So my school took all of us to watch that film in the
Mm.
theater. And I did not even realize until the film was finished and the credits came that it was directed by Spielberg. And
Mhm.
obviously, me being a young, naive kid, I was like, oh, he also does
Mm.
animation. This is fascinating. And over that one year, 2011 to 2012, that was the year of my life. That was a transition phase in my life where I transitioned to watching more of these subdued and reserved films. Although
Lincoln came, no? I
those were
think that year.
also, yeah,
Yeah.
although those were also, majority of them were like English films or Hollywood,
Yep.
mainstream Hollywood films.
Mm.
But I transitioned to actually seeking films out rather than just watching everything that came right in front of me.
Yep.
So in 2012, right a year after having watched Tintin on the big screen with
Mm.
a proper house-packed theater audience,
Mhm.
I watched Lincoln at home right before these before the Oscar
Yeah.
season officially came in.
Mhm.
So a screener was obviously leaked and all, and I
Yeah.
got to watch the film before it was even released. And that time I realized that this is why Spielberg became a household name, because of
Mm.
its sheer range of penetrating different cultures
Yep.
while also retaining a lot of those basic storytelling beats
Yep.
and cues.
Yep.
And slowly and suddenly, I started getting into more of his filmography. I watched Close Encounters. I went
Mm.
chronologically into his films. I watched E.T. quite late in my life, and I loved
Mhm.
it. Even though I still till today prefer Close Encounters a bit
I
more.
thought, I
And
was fearing what you were going to say there. I
I
thought
thought
you were
he'd
going
say
to
koi
say
mil gaya.
that is exactly
oh,
what I was thinking. And I was like, do not
please.
say that.
Okay, so and immediately before even getting into this rabbit hole of collecting and watching all his archival interviews,
Yeah.
all these really old interviews of his, before that, I started noticing this recurring trend of how he uses this push and pull between the personal and the professional, of man's uncontrollable obsession over something,
Yep.
but something that is yet too abstract to
Mhm.
constrain into
Yep.
anything very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So I started noticing those themes.
Yeah.
And I think the turning point in my life as a when I started taking filmmaking and this art form way more seriously was this one interview, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember who came up with that interview, but it was basically a one-on-one conversation between Amitabh Bachchan and Steven Spielberg, where they talk about Duel and all his other
Okay.
all the famous
Mm-hmm.
films by Spielberg. So it was this one-on-one conversation by Bachchan and Spielberg, and that was
Mm-hmm.
the one conversation that I still vividly remember that
Mm-hmm.
entire interview, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
No, I
that
mean
was my
it's.
introduction to Spielberg.
By the end of ET, I did not want to leave those kids with their parents. I just wanted to take those kids home with me and raise them. And I just simply realized that the entire ET was about my own search for, I guess, the parent in me. It was a healing movie because my mom and dad got divorced, and essentially E.T. is about an American family and a divorce and its impact on children. And I was working on a script about an American divorce when I got the idea to do the alien being stranded on Earth, and I combined both concepts. So in a sense, that movie was, at that time, in 1982, the most personal thing I had ever done, and it led 3 years later to my having my first child.
Right. You have many children now,
I have
and grandchildren.
seven now, and 3 grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they see your films?
They do. They don't like all of them.
It's very rare to find filmmakers who are able to, appeal. I mean, this is what I mean, I've been reading also a little bit about this, so I guess I'm more prone to being on the Spielberg side than say a sorry for bringing him up. Than say a Terrence Malick side, just because like that's a good. The comparison I'm making is basically filmmaker who makes one thing in a particular style again and again and again, versus filmmaker who dabbles in different genres and different story, like he has, of course, Spielberg has a very definable crux or core to how he shoots stuff and how he makes stuff, but he has made stuff in a variety of genres now,
Yeah.
right? Like what has he not made stuff in, actually? If that's sort of the actually that's the
I
bigger
think
question than sort of what sort of stuff he's made,
the
like
one
that.
thing he didn't really return to was romance, right? After always flopped.
I mean, West Side Story is a
Um,
romance, right? I
romance,
guess.
yeah. But
Yes.
again,
It's also a retelling.
yeah,
Mm.
I think, but the point you make is great because I think I think Uday Bhatia who said this somewhere
Mm.
that you can't look at a Spielberg film and say it's a Spielberg film.
Mm.
You can do that for a Fincher,
Mm.
you can do that for someone like a Malick,
Mm.
but the great thing about Spielberg is that his
Yep.
chameleon-like
Yep.
ability as a director is his signature. That
Yeah.
you can't. There was this awful time when, and I think Janusz Kaminski pointed this out in the cinematographers roundtable with
Mm.
the Hollywood Reporter at one point, where I think Deakins apparently sent him a message, "How's that backlight doing?" Because Kaminski had really started shoving that backlight into lots of the films they were doing.
Yeah.
So it's visible all the way up till the post, and
Yeah.
then at some point it disappears. And
Mm.
it's not as evident in
Mm.
either West Side Story or in the Fabelmans.
Mm.
So at one point you could start to say, okay, but that was still more of a Kaminsky decision than a
Mm.
Spielberg decision.
No, no. I mean,
So
I think it's to be commended. I mean,
yeah,
again, we
definitely.
we can see. I have favorite filmmakers because I just automatically gravitate towards their very very particular style. But that particularness sometimes is a restriction, also, right? Like to show, I think sometimes, and just the ability to take something template driven, right,
Yeah,
and then sort of put that into a context, and he always has some spin on it. Like, I'm not saying that he
yeah,
needs to have like a radical take on it. Like, he needs, his filmmaking has always been so solid and so like, so by solid I mean great. Like, I don't mean like just averagely good. Like,
yeah,
it's always fantastically good to see the camera move. It's as simple as that sometimes, which is not, I know, it's not, it shouldn't be the priority. Like, of course, you shouldn't be like, that's not like, after you come out of a film, you shouldn't be saying, oh, I love the way the camera, I mean, I don't like saying this, that I like the way how the camera was tracking. Like, that's not my take. If that's my takeaway, then it's like a big problem, I think. No, but I think his ability to generally mix character, like Universal emotion, Universal,
Yeah.
not the company, but actually Universal because they produced the Fabelmans. Universal emotion in general with drama, like everything. Like, I mean, so we basically, I've started with gushing so that then I'll dovetail a little
Yeah.
bit into the criticisms. But no, let's get into the Fabelmans then now, because I think this all kind of leads in well because it's sort of informing the film, and the film sort of informs all this in a way also.
Yeah.
So the Fablemans, just to sort of give I mean, the film is basically a semi-autobiographical thing about how Steven Spielberg came to or started films, or basically it's everything before he actually started making what we know as his feature films. It's dedicated to his mother and father, right? From whatever I know, or
Yeah.
only, it's not just his mother, because I think there's a lot of father stuff that's here which is done
Yeah.
fantastically. That's actually one of my favorite bits of the film.
Same
uh
actually.
yeah, and so it's again a love letter to them, but it's also, of course, it's about a filmmaker, so it's a love letter to cinema itself, a thorny love letter. I think it's not as simple
Yeah.
as
It's not.
Cinema's 24, what, 24, what is it, I always forget this, never mind. Anyways, go ahead. Let's get first impressions. We will begin with Aryan and then we'll go Varun and then I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
So I was really looking forward to watching the Fabelmans actually, right with my first experience in the theater, and I was expecting it to release sooner in India because A, it was backed by a big studio, and B, it was a semi-autobiographical story about this huge ass director, right?
Yeah.
And West Side Story, I still vividly remember traveling 2 hours for that movie to watch that on the big screen. And the first shot of that film itself, you couldn't tell that it's directed by, I mean, obviously, age doesn't have to do anything with this and all, but it does not seem like a film that's directed by a 76-year-old filmmaker, because the sheer momentum behind the camera and the way it complements and
Oh.
elevates the overall story and the thematics of that film, right? So I was already on board. I knew that I would appreciate this film right from the get-go, but I ended up watching it at home first because theaters still weren't able to, like, there wasn't a proper
COVID time.
schedule in India,
Okay.
yeah. And not COVID, but still, I'm talking about Fablemans.
Oh, Fablemans.
So,
Okay.
and I just couldn't take, the film came out on VOD and I
Yeah,
just
it came
couldn't
out
wait.
early,
And
pretty early, right? It's
yeah,
been like a while
yeah,
since it's been out on VOD.
yeah, mid-December.
Hmm.
So I watched it and I loved it.
Mhm.
And even though after finishing the film for a while, I was a bit skeptical on how I felt, how I landed on the second half of the film.
Hmm.
There's this one scene
Hmm.
in the second half
Hmm.
which worked even better for me when I watched it on the big screen in the theater yesterday upon the rewatch. And I think that just sums up, it's that one scene in itself is a testament to the greatness of Spielberg as a director, which in a way echoes the one great thing about this art form, the story
I think I
medium.
know I know what
Yeah.
scene you're talking about, I think.
So, do you want me to get into it, Abhi, sir, or
No,
do you
get
want
into
to?
it later because I don't have
Yeah,
criticisms for that scene, but I'm also a bit about it. So, anyways,
yeah.
yeah,
So
Varun.
even
Sorry.
from an objective point of
Mm.
view, if one were to look at the Fabelmans, I think it's a pristinely directed film,
Yeah.
and you always know when you're watching a Spielberg film, you often notice this ethereal white glow that a lot of his films have, and I
Yes.
think that glow takes on a different purpose and
Yeah,
meaning
it
with
does.
this film because
Yeah,
it is in a
beautiful.
way about his own life, right?
Yeah.
So it just made me feel really giddy watching this film, and
Yeah.
it's yeah,
Yeah. No, go ahead,
I love
Varun.
it.
Gosh. I mean, I like it. I love people gushing about films. I think it's always better than
I
the
think
flip side.
as Aryan pointed out, the release in India was quite bad because it opened in America mid-November, and
Yeah.
because Spielberg has had a day and date release globally
Mm.
since for a while at least. BFG's opened in India same day in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Bridge of Spies, everything.
Mm.
This and West Side Story both have opened late, so
Mm-hmm.
I also ended up watching it at home. We have a plasma at home, so it's like a 480p television set. Neither of my parents watch TV, so they
Yeah.
don't really care. But
Yeah.
I was like sitting far away. If it's a big enough screen, you forget what the resolution is. And I was swept up by it. I had been waiting for it. I was really sort of, what got me was the casting actually, because while Michelle Williams has done this kind of role, she did it in All the Money in the World, for instance. She played a mother in that as well.
Mhm.
I think Seth Rogen and Paul Dano really sort of were clinchers, because I was like, yeah, fun uncle. Who else are you going to go to but Seth Rogen?
Yes. Yeah.
And the dude who smokes a doobie every time there's an opportunity. And
Yeah.
I sort of watched the film, and to me, the thing is, when you make a film about filmmaking,
Hmm.
they end up being like, they can go either way. They can be either like Babylon, which is, oh my God, filmmaking is a terrible world, and or
Yeah.
they can be like, oh, it's all glitz and glamour. I think this captures very interestingly the hardships of being a film lover more than anything
Yes.
else,
Yeah.
because you're like, man, I want to do that, but you're like, oh, I don't have the means to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though today people say all sorts of stuff like it's never been easier than
Yeah.
it is today to be a filmmaker.
I
I
mean, who'll
think
release your stuff?
yeah,
Like, that's the other
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
So, and I was just completely swept up by the film, because I liked the way he interacts with the art form through the film. Like, to him, it first of all, it changes his life as a kid, or
Yeah.
it changes Sammy's life as a kid.
You can
I
say
think
him. I
that's
think it's fine.
him.
Sammy
Yeah, at this
is
point, yeah.
same
I
thing.
think that shot of the young child actor, I've forgotten his name,
Yeah. I
watching
have
the
not
film
noted it also. Yeah.
projected on his hand.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of those
Yes.
shots for
It's
the
a great
ages.
shot. Yes.
And it's also so much about, like, when he starts shooting, and then
Yeah.
later when that one scene happens where the parents are like, we're splitting up, the way
Yeah.
it plays out for
Yeah,
him
I know which one, but that scene is
still,
the very often cited, I think, as one
yeah,
of the key scenes. I think whoever wants to make an argument about if the film is more complicated than what it seems like, very
yeah.
much points towards that scene. I think that's a very
So,
astute observation also.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sold on this scene as a whole,
Hmm.
because I think Michelle Williams gets too hysterical in it.
Hmm.
And Paul Dano's also not really as measured as he is throughout the film.
Hmm.
It could be just me feeling that
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
but I think the way he sees it in that scene
Yes.
is like everything in his life is about film.
Yeah.
Like, he's learning about life through film as much as anything
Yeah.
else, and it just completely swept me up. It's not like the film is
Hmm.
perfect,
Hmm.
but I was like, what? There are emotional driving points to it. Let's be honest.
Hmm.
Spielberg is in the evening of his days.
Yeah.
John Williams is in the night of his days.
Yeah.
This is the last film they're working on together.
Yeah.
So there are those emotional points, but
Hmm.
it's also very clearly about the fact that he has, like you said, it's a Thorny love letter. It's about the fact that it's not a perfect
Yeah.
sort of relationship he has had with the art form.
Yeah.
And he sort of also he comes to the realization that he can play God, like right
Yes.
at the end when he does that ditch day shooting.
Yes.
And it's it's great to see him embrace that side of,
Yeah.
that I've loved this profession and it's given me so much.
Yeah.
It's almost like that.
Yeah, no,
So
I
yeah,
agreed. I mean, whatever you guys have said, I largely agree with only. I think it's, to me, I think the film is most interesting as a relationship between film and filmmaker. Sorry, film and
yeah,
sorry, the camera and the filmmaker, and how he uses that device as a means of control, but how that mean of control itself is uncontrolled. I don't know if this makes sense,
yeah,
but this idea, I think, and this will reverberate throughout the film, and I think I'm pretty confident to say this is my favorite scene of last year, is the basically the intermission, not the intermission point, but there's on I noted this time it was the
It
55th
was the
minute.
interpretation point
But
in India.
when she
Yeah.
watches it, it's the intermission
yeah,
point. But
Yeah.
actually, in India, it was they actually
Yeah.
put attention to it when
After
it
the
fades to
montage. Yeah.
black.
It was amazing. It was
Okay,
amazing.
yeah. So that is basically the intermission point only then.
Yeah.
No, but for me, it's 55th minute. Judd Hirsch basically gives his speech,
yeah,
which I think is very
Mm.
popular, and it's this. It basically informs everything about what's coming to transpire, which is
Yeah.
family art. They will tear you into two. That's the sort of central crux, I feel, like from that point. And basically the next scene, that montage happens, and
Yeah.
I was watching it in the cinema the first time, and I genuinely had my jaw drop. Like I was like, he sat down and did, like, I mean, I'm sure there's been similar sort of ways of, but everything in that scene just came together for me. Performance, the way the music, I think, like the use of that classical piece there is phenomenal,
Yeah.
and the way one sort of that links with what he thinks he's seeing on the screen. So it's everything sort of colliding. His world sort of is collapsing around him
Yeah.
as like as he's watching it, and it's the, I think, the point of everything being thorny at that point. I feel it's the sense that that's one medium he thought he had control over. That's one medium he thought he could manipulate everything, he could create everything from it. But
Yeah.
then he sits there and he sees that it's recorded something that he hadn't planned. And I think that realization and him sort of like that breaking him, I think that's like my
The
sort of
slow
favorite.
revival of the entire context of the scene changing.
Exactly. He puts the reels
Yeah.
again, he puts
Yeah,
back the
it's
reels, the
brilliant, man.
camera swirling again, the music starts again. Like it's every, like, I don't know. I will definitely do a close analysis of the scene sometime because there's so much in the scene to pick apart.
Yeah.
But I don't, but everything I think before that also serves a great precursor to what's coming up. And I think like that central tension between art, family, filmmaking is something which is, you know, a means of creating meaning, a means of revealing meaning. I think that's the bigger sort of dichotomy also that's going there. All that I thought is so phenomenal in a film which seems like it's like, I think the trailers promoted it as a simple sort of father is scientist or
Yeah.
whatever, mother is art, and then you'll get like this broad clash between art and science, and like
Yeah.
that's what it, which it isn't, because in effect filmmaking is science and art in any case, right? It's a mixture of
Yeah.
the two. So the lovely thing, I think, the second time I was watching in the first half was just I was fixated on Paul Dano this time. I was like, I really felt bad for him. I was like, I felt, I really, and I mean, I was like, they made me feel bad for the engineer in the family. I like that's how that's the limits to which you can go. No, but he's
Yeah.
really really good. Or maybe he reminds me of someone I've seen who I won't reveal. So, so he really got to something, and I was like really moved by whatever he was doing in the margins. I know the store stealers are like Judd Hirsch and like Michelle
Yeah.
Williams, who I'm
Michelle Williams.
still not sold on. I don't get that performance. I don't
I
know
agree
why.
with you.
I don't get that performance still. Ari, you can defend her performance. And I love Michelle Williams in general. So I think it's more of a weird, I don't know. Anyways, but I love Gabriel Labelle also. I know he kind of gets
Oh, he's
lost in the.
fantastic.
He's
It's amazing.
fantastic as the main character here. And I think second half you guys will get into. But first half, I'm all with you guys.
I think the point about Gabriel Labelle is actually quite interesting because it made me think of the number of young actors Spielberg has worked with over the years,
Hmm.
be it the kid actors he's worked with naturally because he's done,
Yes.
the kid
Yep.
films, so to speak, E.T. and, all of that. But also he's had DiCaprio at a fairly early
Yep.
juncture in his career. He's had
Has he had any of
Ray,
those actor director collaborations? Like I know Scorsese has
Tom
had them a lot of.
Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yes, sorry, yes, Tom
Yeah,
Hanks.
that's yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
So so and Rachel Zegler in West Side Story,
Mhm.
and now Gabriel Labelle.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what he makes these young, late teens, early 20s kind of people do.
Yeah.
And how, of course, I feel he failed because he couldn't get Ansel Elgort to emote, but I think that's more an Ansel Elgort failing.
Yeah.
So,
Let's
but
not get
it
there.
it
Just
it
sad
just
He
considering
failed
why.
because he couldn't get him out of this.
That's so true. He's good in Baby Driver. Okay, I defend him for that. But okay.
yeah,
Anyways.
but I felt like he really knows how to use
Yeah.
people, and like you said, Dano is so good in the film, and like you, I'm not sold on the Michelle Williams performance. I think it just the sort of the pitch of it is just off at some point.
It's
It's
not
like,
just her. Like I don't want to just blame it on her. Like I
yeah,
don't think
it's
it's
not
her
just her, but
performance.
I think
It's a combination of a lot
it's
of things.
almost like the scene where he asked that guy to just walk in and
Yes.
continue to emote for way too long. That's Michelle Williams' performance in
A
that film.
little bit, but not. I
Yeah.
don't think it's just that though. Yeah, like I think there's one scene. I think I was really moved by her in this. Is the intermission point where the camera like
yeah,
goes like almost that's his traditional dolly and which and she's watching the projector like whatever Sammy has recorded and edited
yeah,
of the affair he finds out about his
Hmm.
mom and Benny and it just like stays on her
Yeah.
face and she has
yeah,
such
Yeah.
a expressive face in general that
Hmm.
I think when she's doing the histrionic and like everything and like everything's eccentric, I'm like okay, I need to whatever, which
You
might as
know,
be part
it
of the character, so yes.
That's what I'm saying, that it works for me basically because it helps reinforce these dichotomies more on screen of having this very well resolved mechanical part at his home of
Hmm.
Paul Dano's character of his
yeah,
father versus this grand character,
Yep.
which is like literally the sentimental part of all his
Yep.
films, right?
yeah,
Yep.
Multiplied by 100, right?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean that's a
about
bit
finding
too
a
multiplied,
balance
yes.
between
Yes.
that, and I know that it can get very obnoxious on screen because it gets too much into that aspect.
Yeah.
But I think it works for me because the film immediately acknowledge all of these things right within its first act.
Hmm.
Because there's this scene again. It brings me on the same thing about establishing this connection between loving an art form and filming it and
Hmm.
coming on terms to becoming embracing that art form.
Hmm.
So there's this one scene where she's sitting and they're all wondering, both his parents are wondering that why does he have to hit the train and ruin the train, why
Hmm.
does he even
yeah,
want the train? And then she's just suddenly sitting there, and this thought, this realization comes to her after she realizes that she can't pursue her own
Yep.
dream of playing and singing anymore.
Yep.
And that's when she realizes, oh, he just wants to establish some control over me.
Yep.
That's why he wants to see them hit. That's why it's
Yep.
important for him to see the train crash.
Yep.
And it's scenes like that which completely bring the film back to its ground rooted
Hmm.
reality. When Sammy also acknowledges, in a way, Spielberg acknowledges that you have to be a selfish person sometimes to survive
Yeah. Yeah.
doing this,
yeah,
Hmm.
pursuing this art form, right?
Yep.
When you literally have this scene where his sister tells him to in his
yeah,
face that you are the one who's selfish. That's why you're so much like her. That's
Yep.
why you can't see her like
Yep.
this. And it's just it
No, no,
seems
I
like
get,
these have worked
I know,
so
I
well.
get
Yeah.
what you mean. I just, it's again, I think it's being used to a certain pitch of performance also, I think. And I again, I do think it's less only performance, more just makeup
yeah,
also, like hair design. Like I know that's if you're recreating that look, it must be drawn from very much like whatever he
yeah,
used to have, like his recollection of his mom, right? And if you want to go down the route of a child remembering a parent, it's always a
true,
little bit
yeah,
glorified.
Mm.
So all that works in the context, but I feel I still find it hard going to really get into some of the histrionics that are going on with her character. But I understand why some people have really liked her. Like I know that it's been a very divisive sort of performance. So
I think the thing is, if you see the HBO documentary that they did on Spielberg a couple
hmm.
of years ago, she's very much like his mom, like Leah Adler.
Okay.
The thing is that, like, while I do agree with what Arun is pointing out, that it's a mechanical father and an artistic mother, and that
Mhm.
that sort of clash, as it were.
Mm.
I think somewhere, because the rest of the film is operating on a different plane altogether
Mhm.
from the performance, it Spielberg is not able to get it
Mm.
to sort of fit.
Mm.
Like, so to some of us, she might appear like she exists outside of the film.
Mm.
Like, even Benny with the fun uncle gag essentially fits in well with the space.
Yeah.
But
That's what
maybe,
happens. Yeah.
maybe the point is to make her seem like this
Mm.
eccentric who doesn't fit in. You
Mhm.
you can't tell. Everything
Mm.
is conjecture essentially
Yeah.
about. But
No, but
I think,
I think if Gabriel Labelle is supposed to be the synthesis of the two, then I
yeah,
feel in many ways his performance mediates the eccentric and that thing a little bit. I see. I think there's an argument to be definitely made about why that's such a conscious decision on Spielberg's part. I feel I don't want to, because I think Michelle Williams is a fantastic actor. I've seen her in
yeah,
enough things to be convinced that she's a great actress in general. So it's not
yeah,
that her, it's a very, I'm sure she's doing the what is being told. It's not like it's not like just her performance
yeah,
quirk that's coming through, because she, I think,
Mm.
is generally known for playing more reserved characters,
Yes,
right?
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I think maybe, I don't know, I can't even imagine other characters in this. I don't know, I'm trying to think now, but
I
no, go
think,
ahead, whatever you guys were saying.
like, it works for the Judd Hirsch character because he's built up like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're told that he's
Grown up in
he's
Hollywood.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. So
Since.
you're
He,
told that
yeah.
this guy is coming in, he's going to change this entire thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you're ready for it. You're also sort of ready for what's his name, Bert's mother's character,
Mm.
because this is a woman born in
Ah,
the
yes.
early
Yes,
1900s,
yes, 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 yes.
and you because the setting informs you as much, right?
Yeah.
Not
Mm.
maybe not
And
even early
Ford,
1900s.
even John
Yeah,
Ford, like
even
even
John
David
Ford. Yeah.
Lynch. Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I mean, I don't know whether that cameo works for me
Okay,
entirely.
okay.
Like, I'm not, because John Ford had a very different sort of. But I mean, we'll get to that later.
Yes, yes.
But I felt like the Hirsch thing worked,
Mm-hmm.
and Michelle Williams, again, in parts of Ridley Scott's All the Money in the World, she did have to do the hysteria bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I do. To me, she doesn't do the hysteria very well. Like, she
That's
does
fair
it well
enough.
in a film like Blue Valentine,
Hmm.
where the
But that's a
hysteria
very
is still,
reserved side of
yeah,
where
and it's a
hysteria.
very
No.
sort of, almost a claustrophobic kind of
Yeah,
setting.
yeah.
Here, where there's a little more space to do things,
Hmm.
I don't think it comes off as well. But then, I
Hmm.
mean, it's a function of character. It's
Yeah,
You can assign, and it's still a good performance. I mean,
yeah,
it's not bad acting at
yeah.
any level. It's still very
It's
good
about
acting.
level of engagement, I think, like how
Yeah,
much you get connected or drawn to it. Like I was just drawn to, and I'm not the biggest Paul Dano fan. I think, like, I've never, again, he's not one of the actors if someone says which actors' films do you look forward to, I don't think Paul Dano
yeah,
is the one who comes to my mind. But I was like just looking, I was like, firstly, I was just like feeling bad for him. I was like,
yeah,
poor guys, and like there's one shot where they had the camping trip, and he's trying to explain something about the camp,
Yeah.
like the
And the kids.
triangular,
yeah. And the kids
and
just
then
The
and the
abandon him.
sisters
camera
one. Yeah.
even looks apart, and I was like, come on, stay towards him. He needs
Yeah,
some, like, he needs someone. And he
Mm.
does a lot of like there's, I think, one moment where like Benny makes Michelle Williams' character laugh a lot, and he's just like, you can see him feeling
yeah.
terrible at the fact that he's not making her laugh, but then he
I think
starts
that's right at the
laughing.
beginning of the film,
Yeah,
right?
at the beginning,
When
and
they're
he
having
starts
at that
laughing.
table.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
starts
yeah,
laughing because he's accommodating. That's what he's done
yeah,
throughout his life, and it's really touching, and especially because the trailer paints him to be a complete douche. Like
yeah,
the trailer paints him out to be one of those very stereotypical fathers who never
Dads.
supported.
Yeah.
yeah. Ronit
Exactly.
Roy from
Competing
Udan.
at as a
Ronit Roy from
hobby.
Udan, basically.
Yeah.
Yes. But he's
And
not that at all.
Yeah.
he's terrific. I think
Yeah,
of the sort of grown-up performances,
yeah.
he's sort of.
He
I
won't
think
get it's very predictable that Paul Dano won't get a nomination because Oscars.
I knew it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Oscars
it's
are about. Can you show me what
histrionics,
you?
no?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yes,
Or they'll reward a guy like Brendan Gleeson, right, for
yes,
for Banshees, because
yes,
that's also a legacy. I
yes.
think it would be a legacy award also in part if
He
they were to
won't.
give
I
it to
mean,
him.
none of them
He
are
won't
winning
win.
it.
He's not winning. He's not winning.
Ye Hua Kwan, I think, is
Short
from.
round is going to win.
Yes.
So Spielberg wins anyway. But I think
Yes.
I quite liked the fact that he doesn't play around with the fact that his parents had this not an acrimonious split, but
Hmm.
it was a marriage that went pretty badly wrong because
Yep.
like your wife falls in love with your best friend
Hmm.
is shitty essentially.
Yeah.
And I think it takes courage because again, right, you're not used to looking at your parents with objectivity.
Yeah.
And Spielberg, I mean, people who are watching the film casually might not care, but he's very recently lost his dad
Hmm.
at like the ripe old age of 102.
Hmm.
So, it's you're still sort of processing that,
Yeah.
and you're trying to not make a judgment. And I think that he does very well. He doesn't arrive at a judgment about which parent is good,
Oh yeah, yeah,
which parent is bad.
100%. Yeah.
And a lot of that actually has to do with the scene that Aryan pointed out, the scene where Julia Butters, who plays the sister closest to him in age, Reggie, she
She's very
confronts
good.
him about it. Yeah, she's also completely different from what she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was like, this is the
She's
same
in Once Upon a
actress.
Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, this is the kid actor from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think.
Oh wow,
Julia
I did
Butters,
not know
right?
this, which is a good sign of whatever. Either a good sign, it's either a sign of my memory or either a sign of
Or like she
the
grew up
actor
too
being very
fast.
good. Yes. So yes, I would say the next thing rather than the
Yeah.
former. Like, yeah.
So it's because you would judge a parent in that sort of a situation.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You would, and you would at that age more or less parents or rather children would judge the father rather than the mother
Hmm.
because the mother is sort of built up in any sort of consciousness as a sort
Yeah.
of superior figure.
Yeah.
And I quite liked how he still manages to pull it all together. And
Yeah.
like you said, Dano is fantastic, and I do like him a lot. But like
Hmm.
you said, I mean, Dano's never frontlining
Yeah.
a film. Like Paul Rudd got Ant-Man, but like Dano is not going to get.
I mean,
I mean,
Dano,
he got Riddler. He got Riddler,
he's
but
got
like
the unfortunate thing of being second fiddle to a lot of people in the
yeah,
in the
but I
films
mean,
which
he's
he's done
yeah.
done well. Like even there will be
There will
blood.
there will
Right?
be
So
blood.
he's
He's
pretty
terrific.
good in that. He's pretty good in that, right? So
Yeah,
He's great in that.
he's
yeah,
it's and he's got that chillingly neutral face.
yeah,
You don't know what this
yeah,
guy could be. He could be the
yeah.
sweetest,
Yes,
dude who hands out
Or
candy,
just
or he could be
extremely
a
menacing.
psychopath,
which he is
Yeah.
in Riddler.
which he is in Prisoners. He is in
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Prisoners
in
also.
Which
Prisoners
he's assumed.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Which
true.
he's
Actually,
Very
he's
good.
not the psychopath in Prisoners.
Yeah,
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 that
yeah.
he's
Holly Hunter is the
and
psychopath
the
in Prisoners.
fact that they scapegoat his character because
Yeah,
of his
Yeah.
face, because of his
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
neutrality.
yeah. I forgot.
yeah.
Why have I forgotten about Prisoners? I remember really liking that film. Anyways, Aryan, what were you saying? Were you saying anything?
Yeah, so
Yes. Yes. Okay.
I was just saying that it just comes down to, especially after the rewatch,
Hmm.
the entire film for me comes down to this one scene
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were
towards
saying
the
the
end of
second
the
half.
film.
Yes.
Yeah, towards the end of the
Yeah.
film, after filming the entire Ditch Day thing,
Yeah.
he goes to confront his date on prom. Okay.
Yes.
And of course, because he's grand, because he's grown up watching films and all, he
Yeah.
decides to ask her date out to
Yeah.
marry her. Okay. He
Yeah.
proposes
Yeah.
to her
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the prom night. And
Yeah.
obviously, the natural reaction
Yeah.
is the girl is freaked out. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a point where the conversation just keeps getting worse and worse. It just keeps
Yeah.
getting awkward and awkward for
Hmm.
both of them. Okay. And she even uh, takes out the
Yeah.
Jesus
The
The
Christ
necklace.
chain
Yeah.
Jesus.
necklace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll pray for you because you need praying.
Yeah.
And there's this fun dialogue
Yeah.
where she says that sometimes we just can't
Yeah.
fix things.
Yeah.
We just have to
Suffer.
suffer or something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sometimes we just can't fix things. We just have to
Something.
suffer. And
Something. What a Jesus follower would say, I suppose.
yeah,
Very.
okay.
Very
And she's
different.
like,
Yes.
we have to suffer. You can't just fix everything, Sam.
Oh.
And it's like a very melodramatic scene, and you see the
Yeah.
lights getting dimmed and all.
Hmm.
And then you see the film being played out, the film that
Hmm.
he shot and edited and cut out.
Hmm.
And you see Spielberg prove the contrary,
Yeah.
which in itself is a testament to this art form. of no, you can change everything. You can change people's perspective. You can have this frame shift in emotions because this medium allows that.
Yeah.
This is a medium that's powerful enough to cheat your way, to manipulate footage and to manipulate people's emotions, but
Yeah.
it can do good things. It can portray an anti-Semitic as a hero.
Is that a good
It
thing?
can
I was about to
portray
ask. Is that a good thing? Like if it can
I
cheat, that's also its form of cheating and lying, no?
but that's what he acknowledges right
Yeah.
after the end when he confronts her. And the very fact that again it's very cheesy, it's very Hollywoody.
Yeah.
But the dialogue where he's like you see the guy who's pissed at him, you
Yeah.
see him echoing the same thing that the girl had said,
Yeah.
that life is not a film, Sammy.
Yeah.
You have to grow up. And he's
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, but in the end you did get the girl.
Yeah.
And he's just silent. He's just
Yeah.
it's just that scene.
No,
I
I
was like,
understand the
this is
appeal
why I
for it.
love this movie.
I
And
understand the
if
appeal for it. Yeah.
I think if anyone loves that scene, that in general is a testament to what Spielberg has given to cinema in general. But I totally understand why that scene and the film wouldn't work for anyone because of its sentimentality, because it asks for too much from the viewer. But for me, it really sums up Spielberg's entire career.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, to take off a little bit on what Aryan said, the bad guy gets the girl, which is often, I mean, the bad guy rather gets what he wants in life, which is
Yeah.
often the case in life.
Yeah.
So it's also sort of, doing
Mixed.
that
Yeah.
you can do what you want in life, but you
Mm.
can also get screwed over by it because the girl's left.
Yes. Yes.
Now he's figuring things out.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
this
it's a
is the
good
guy who is-
contrast, no? Like everyone's cheering and everything, but the next scene is he's crying, in the locker room. So that
Exactly,
contrast, I think, is
exactly.
there. I'm not gonna say much about this scene because I know you guys love it. The California section basically to me is the point where the film dips a fair bit.
Yeah.
He leaves the camera, and
Mhm.
I think the film basically leaves me a fair bit. I'm just like, there's a lot of stuff happening. I don't so I was first time I watched it, I was split between thinking if the stuff at the college is like intentionally a bit cringy or if it's just a bit
Yeah.
hokey in general. And I think the second time I watched it, I was more on the second side. I was like, okay, I don't think I'm with this.
The
But
entire date,
the day, like I
home
know some people
date,
really
yeah.
like the whole Jesus girl. I'm like, fine, I get it, but like I'm like,
I thought it was hilarious. There's no
I,
other.
I had a very weird viewing of that entire subplot this time around. So maybe it's just yeah.
I mean, I was just a bit like, it's okay. Like, I understand the appeal for it, but I was also a bit like, this is a little too cringy for me. Like, I was like, I was like, just going on the other side of like, a little too much.
To me, what that allowed, what the Jesus Girl subplot allowed Spielberg to do, and what the
Hmm.
entire high school thing allows him to do, is also reflect on religion,
Yeah.
which is, if you look at up until 1993, Steven
Hmm.
Spielberg is the maker of blockbusters,
Yeah.
but nobody takes him seriously in the sense that okay, he's had an Empire of the Sun,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Yeah.
Right? He's still the guy who's making sci-fi movies and movies about sharks and movies about archaeologists.
Yes.
93 is when Schindler's List happened.
Yeah.
And his acceptance of his Judaism
Yeah.
changes his entire life as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the film also it riffs on both. It takes
Yes.
pot
Yes.
shots
I
at
understand what
Judaism
you mean.
as well. Like
Yeah.
he's got that, very heavily sort of Jewish grandmother who's
Mhm.
crazy to the point of,
Yeah.
to the point of
Yeah.
like people can remember their own sort of grandparents and what ideas they have, or like
Yeah.
old people in general, what ideas they have about religion.
Yeah.
And then he's got this really stupid shot of them starting to make out and Jesus on the cross looking down at them.
Oh yes,
this
yes, 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 yes. I remember.
this is
Yes.
stupid, but it
So
is hilarious.
no, I get it. Like, I mean, I what you say is actually very true. I guess I want, like, if you're going to riff on that, I would want it to be in done in a much harsher light, or like the
Yeah.
the whatever approach he's taking here. I was a bit like, okay, I get what you also. Armageddon Time released this year. And it's a lot about this similar sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
was a bit like, my head kept on going to like only in that aspect, nothing else.
Yeah.
Like I know both of them are supposed to be about Jewish families, right? And
Yeah.
and how that sort of informs them, and their sort of perspectives on a lot of things. So this when all this sort of dovetailed into the high school stuff, and when the bullies are making him like
Yeah.
are being like that, I was a bit like a little too like normal. I don't want to say high school or post high school TV
Shenanigans,
sort of
yeah.
stuff. I was like, but whatever. I was a bit
Yeah.
like I was missing the center of that the tension that was established before, which is there
Yeah.
in some, like what Aryan is saying about the ditch day scene. There is that
Yeah.
tension that comes back
Before
about
the
filmmaking and
on
how
the
that
dinner
sort of,
table. Yeah.
yeah. And then there's that shot in the scene that Varun had described before of him filming his parents' divorce in the glass,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the big central tension, I thought. And I was like, oh wow, you got that back. Can you
Yeah.
please stick on to this, because I really am gravitating towards what you're doing with this. So I really like that. But then I think whenever it's in California, I was a little like it's going on like normal fumes. Like I wasn't like super into it. So maybe it's that.
I think one of the unfortunate byproducts of making a film on your career,
Hmm.
or sort of reflecting on life in general, and this is
Hmm.
also something that happened to Irishman,
Hmm.
is that people need to have too much context
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, that's
Right.
true.
I mean, I can't be expected to walk into a movie having read all 25 biographies published on you, watched the 10 documentaries people have made. This is not a
Yes.
PhD thesis.
Yes.
But like, I think so if your film requires that much sort of ancillary viewing or reading, then it's too much.
Yeah.
And there were parts of it where I felt Spielberg didn't like, I felt he could have really gone in with the high school thing, because
Hmm.
anti-Semitism is a big problem in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a country that intervened in World War II and
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
not discovered, but they helped liberate so many of the concentration camps, their
Hmm.
apathy towards a community that has been slaughtered is
Yeah.
quite casual.
I mean,
So,
that's what I'm saying, right? Like, if you're going to approach
yeah,
that, then you really need to focus on it, which I think
yeah,
you don't
lean
have
into it,
that much time here to do that. It's like going through a number of things that you have to do. And I think he
yeah,
has a central focus in that filmmaking, art, family thing.
yeah,
So I think this sort of stuff, I'm like, this maybe could have been like a second part, like if you're going to make
yeah,
Fabelmans 2, which of course he's not
true,
going to,
yeah.
but like,
He's not going
well, I mean, it's
but
better. We have enough
we have,
universes and things set
yeah.
up for us. Pathan 2 has to come sometime, so looking forward to
War
that.
2 has just been announced apparently today, like unofficially. It- But I mean, the point
What
about
was a
the second
moment of
half that you
silence
made.
after that? Like a funeral moment, right?
Everybody, like, I hope they don't resurrect Tiger Shroff.
Oh, that's happening
That
100%.
that would be bad. But I think, like, though I somewhat agree with the problems
Hmm.
you've got with the second half of the film, it
Hmm.
does have what is my favorite scene, which is
Hmm.
him and his dad in the apartment.
Oh,
Oh,
that's when they
My
get out of
yeah.
California though. So my
Yeah.
California thing is I have
Oh,
a problem
okay.
with the California section. That's
No,
LA.
but him and his
No,
dad
it's
in the
in
LA.
California when
isn't
he
LA
receives the
California?
mail, right?
I mean, sorry. I mean, they whenever the title
Okay,
cards
so
say
you
California
mean
and when they
suburban
say LA. Yes,
California,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm referring to the title cards.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I also felt like he had a nice approach to California. He was like, okay, you're used to sun in California. Here's a lot of
Yes.
cloud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's all everything's going bad now, basically. Whenever
Bad, yeah.
when he chucks out his camera, most of the stuff.
Camera, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I like though how he gets back into filmmaking is so like
Yeah.
blase. It's like because someone else has a very super
Very cool camera, yeah.
cool camera. I like it. Like I don't need that moment to be like, oh, my camera
Again,
or
Yeah,
I think
it's
whatever. Yeah.
it's
profound.
also in a subtle way, in a very in one way, it's also a very mechanical
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because of the camera, that's
Yes.
why he's wanting to get back,
Yeah.
and that's why his father is like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
I
his
think
dad is like, oh, he's probably grown
I
up.
don't
And
mind.
I liked all that
Yeah.
also. Like that dinner table conversation was pretty good. I like that.
Yeah,
And
In
I
that.
like the fact that they use that underlying. It's a comedic scene,
Yeah.
like that plumber scene, no, from Kapoor and Sons.
Yes.
At the
Oh,
surface
yeah.
level, it's a comedic scene,
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
then when you see Mitzi and Bert sort of, start dishing it out to each
yeah,
other,
yeah,
you realize
yeah.
that there's, real firecrackers could go off in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
anyway.
He's
no,
basically like you've won, right? You all
Yeah.
it's
like
so
always you
good
win.
actually that you bring that scene up
Yeah.
because I remember I was precisely thinking of the same scene from Kapoor and Sons,
Yeah.
not because of the similarities, but because I remember in a film companion interview or something like that, where Shakun Batra was talking about how he was inspired by this one scene from Close Encounters, which
Oh,
Wow.
similarly creates that kind of a chaos, like where there's in the
Ah.
background there's a comedic scene playing out, but in the foreground there's these tensed family dynamics that
yeah.
slowly unraveling. And I was thinking of the same scene, and
I
I
mean,
was
I have
actually
so many jokes to make here, but I'm not
there's
going to delve into this.
there's so many as a subtle visual cues and
Yeah.
Yeah.
storytelling beat, which I was like fascinated to
Mm.
pick up upon my second rewatch while watching the
Mm-hmm.
Fabelmans,
Mm-hmm.
which were like so evidently there in films like E.T. and Close
Mm-hmm.
Encounters and all these films.
E.T. में
Like
तो I
especially,
think I mean the trinkets are there in both E.T. and
yeah,
Close
yeah, yeah.
Encounters. I was listed because I just would rewatch them not rewatch, I watched them for the first time actually. So I was like,
Which
no, both of them I hadn't seen them.
Close Encounters you watched for the
Listen,
first time?
Aryan, I am
I've
Oh
not
watching.
yeah.
watched it.
I am watching.
Close Encounters is
Close Encounters is
brilliant.
very very good.
Brilliant. It's
Very very
I
good.
amazing.
mean,
I mean,
man,
I don't think
E.T.
any other film from the 70s, and I'm saying this with a straight
I
face.
don't like. What do you mean?
I don't think any other American film from the 70s has had that kind of
Oh,
influence on
Impact.
American.
Why Taxi
Yeah,
Driver?
I don't
Godfather.
think so, man. Close
Godfather.
Encounters, Close and Godfather is okay. Godfather comes close, but
Godfather is
Close
okay.
Encounters.
I'm gonna
Star Wars. I mean, Star
out of
Wars
context.
starts.
Out of context.
Star Wars, but still Close Encounters ka, if you look it's at its impact
Now
on
it is, yes.
blockbuster
Yes.
cinema,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's unprecedented. After
Aryan,
that,
you are
obviously,
definitely getting the out of context. Godfather is okay is getting published somewhere.
Your father was a computer scientist. Your mother was a musician. When the spaceship lands, how do they communicate?
That's
They-
a very good question. I like that. You've answered the question.
They make music on their computers and they are able to speak to each other.
And you see, I'd love to say, I intended that and I realized that was my mother and father, but not until this moment.
I think we should go towards the David Lynch moment, I guess.
Yeah.
The David Lynch, John Ford, Horizon joke moment, which has spoiled
reaction of
every
my theater
every.
was surprisingly like
You had
crazy. I
David
wasn't
Lynch fans
expecting.
probably there more so than John
Yeah.
Ford fans.
And I
Yeah.
was surprised.
Nobody knows John Ford today.
Yeah, which is sad, but like I find that scene funny mainly because less because of John Ford, just because it's
More
David
because of
Lynch.
David Lynch.
Yeah, it's like David Lynch playing a very annoyed.
Something.
He seems annoyed, which
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would in if he starred in Fabelmans. Like I felt like that. Like it's so not his place to be. He feels out of place, which is I think the funny thing about the scene. So, but that Horizon thing has totally ruined my viewing of Spielberg and Ford movies now. All I do is look at where the freaking horizon is all the time. Every time. And honestly, I was watching the Spielberg films, he barely holds a shot in the middle. It's always up or down only. Like he's actually taken that advice pretty seriously. So
For 35 movies.
yeah, I mean, I to just watch two, so I know from those two. But I will be watching AI for the first time today sometime. So
I
yes,
haven't watched it.
I
I've
think,
heard that's the.
John Ford was a funny callback actually.
Hmm.
And it's also very interesting that the only two films he watches in the film are
Yeah.
both John
Liberty.
Ford films.
Yeah,
British
Right?
Honors.
He doesn't.
and
And Liberty Vans.
Liberty
The man
Valance.
who shot
Yes,
Liberty
yes,
Vans.
yes, yes,
Valance,
yes,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
He doesn't watch any William Wyler. He doesn't watch any Frank Capra. He doesn't watch anything by
Yeah, I'm
any of
surprised
the
no
other guys,
Frank
right?
Capra of all
uncultured.
people.
He doesn't watch. And what surprised me was because in the lockdown, I had watched this show Spielberg and Amblin Television did called Five Came Back.
Mhm.
It's about these 5 contemporary filmmakers. So you've got Spielberg, Coppola,
Mm-hmm.
Greengrass, Lawrence Kasdan, and Guillermo del Toro.
Wow.
Talking about the 5 Hollywood big filmmakers who went to shoot actual footage during battles of World War II. So you've got George
Okay.
Stevens Sr., you've got John Ford, you've got William Wyler, you've got Frank Capra, and you've got I've forgotten the fifth. But in that film, so each filmmaker had an assigned director.
Mm-hmm.
Greengrass took John Ford,
Okay.
and Spielberg took Wyler,
Hmm.
which was surprising to me here because I was like, hey, then why didn't you do John Ford over there? Is
I
it because
guess
Greengrass wanted Ford that badly?
so weird to imagine Greengrass as a Fordian. Like his camera never stays still like
Oh my
Greengrass
god.
is. More on Paul
But yeah,
Greengrass sometime else. That's what a
yeah,
weird
yeah,
diversion that is. But
yeah.
no, go ahead. So Aryan,
So
your theater went
From
crazy, right?
from what I've heard, I've not watched any John Ford interviews from back
Mm-hmm.
in the day, but from what I've heard, a lot of people have been saying that he was actually quite similar when it comes to his style of like smoking and lighting up the
Yeah,
cigarette and
that's
yeah,
all.
yeah.
yeah. But that
The
even
And
David
cigar
because
is
Lynch
very
does.
why
That's the
would
thing.
people why would it not work for people? Because for me, the last shot, the frame
That's a
shift,
very
yeah,
good
yeah,
shot.
yeah,
Yeah.
that entire thing is it's like such a giddy
yeah,
yet
Yeah.
fun acknowledgement that he's still learning
Yeah.
in a
yeah,
way that he's still
Oh, I
acknowledging
think it's just
the
Janusz
masters that
Kaminski and Steven Spielberg being like, "Oh, we know everything. We'll just make a joke about framing in the last scene," and which
it's,
most
it's
cinephiles will get. But of course they've just
yeah,
been told, so maybe everyone gets. But yes,
yeah.
but it's such a fun
nah, it is.
acknowledgement
It's a
of
great,
yeah.
yeah, it's a great moment, I think. But yeah, you said Varun, you are not so sold on Mr.
No, I
Lynch.
mean, I was not sold on Lynch because,
Mm.
okay, first of all, Ford looks completely different, right? Ford is a much
So does
stouter,
Spielberg.
much shorter dude. Yeah, no, but actually, Gabriel Labelle looks a bit like the kid Spielberg we
Ah,
remembered
Exactly. Yeah, I noticed
before
that,
he,
especially when he's wearing that
yeah,
Ditch Day Pay, when he's wearing
mm.
that shirt on the
yeah,
beach. Because I remember seeing documentaries and like random clips from sets of Jaws back
yeah.
in the day,
Mm.
and I was like, oh my god, he looks
You
very
just give him
similar to
The
specs
Spielberg.
and
Ditch Day
slightly
thing
longer
reminded
hair.
you of Jaws also a little bit, or what? The
The
setting?
waves.
Just because it's a
Yeah, I
beach, you
mean,
say it's Jaws,
yeah,
I
just
guess.
because of
I
the
would have loved
background.
to see that, that shot that
The
Spielberg
dolly and
mastered
zoom
with
out.
Jaws. Yeah, 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 yeah. I would
There's a
love to see
poster
that
of
footage again.
Vertigo, I'll notice this time, lying around in one scene.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you only see like one side of it, but I was like, oh, neat. I mean, just because I like Vertigo, I
Yeah.
guess that's why it's neat. No,
So
but yeah, you were saying.
yeah, I liked Lynch, but I feel like if they'd not sort of alluded to John Ford so clearly with the
Hmm.
eye patch and the cigars and everything,
Yeah.
it would have still worked
Yeah.
as a scene. But
Hmm.
because they wanted to do that, I felt somewhere, and he's not natural. He doesn't feel like an actor. He's like a cameo guy.
I mean,
I know he's done a
he's
fair bit of acting.
no. I was about to say, if you watch him in Lynch movies, he feels like an actor because the acting he's doing in that movie or that show, at least Twin Peaks, seems
Yeah,
just right for that
right for
tonality of
him.
that show, like the bonkersness and like he does that, and I think that's
Yeah,
why I was like, this isn't. I don't care if it's John Ford. This is David
yeah,
Lynch being in a Steven Spielberg movie. Of
yeah.
course, he feels
Which
awkward
is
being
fun
there.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun enough. Like I laughed a bit, and
Mm.
the handkerchiefs, or no, not the handkerchiefs actually, the lipstick, because
Lipstick,
Ford
the
Ford was
set.
actually notorious for hankies. He used to chew up his hankies, like 20 hankies in a shooting day, and like then chuck them around or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's great to it's a nice little acknowledgement. I feel like
Yep.
I'm also glad Spielberg didn't double down on that. He
Hmm.
went with just Ford because he could have just as easily won. Oh, you know what? When I was sneaking around the Universal lot, Alfred Hitchcock used to be shooting television. So I'm going to
Yeah.
show you one fat dude shooting a TV pilot.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
glad he didn't do that. It
No,
would
no,
have
like
been
the
terrible.
restriction, it didn't feel like whatever. Look
Yeah.
at who all I was able to meet.
Yeah. Even the Hogan's Heroes sort of reference does not.
Yeah.
It for a second it reminded me of that awful show Paramount made, The Offer, and then I was like, then I
Arey,
bought.
this though we've heard, like someone told us it was good, no, Aryan? The offer?
Which show?
The Offer, the Godfather. This is the
Yeah,
Godfather
yeah. This is the Godfather show.
making of
Okay.
or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I don't remember. I've not seen
I'm
it.
just I watched like 4 episodes and I checked out. I can't stand
Okay.
it. Can't
Okay.
stand it.
That's
So
me after every show, irrespective of whether it's good or bad.
why
So
you love
yeah,
Last of Us, no?
But that is for like different reasons. Huh? Personal, I was most of
Acha, okay.
because of the game.
Yes, yes, fair enough. No, but anything else, guys, about Fabelmans, Spielberg, Oscars, I guess. What do you think?
Oscars. I really think that they actually might hand the best director Oscar.
director,
Director?
yeah.
How many
Yeah,
times has he
because
won it?
He's
twice.
won it
I guess.
twice.
Yeah.
Schindler's List and
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving.
oh, he won for Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay,
he's
is
not won
that the
since
oh that's the year
25
for
years.
Shakespeare in Love, right?
Shakespeare in Love, they
Yeah.
took the best picture.
Yeah.
Mm.
And funnily
Uh,
enough, if he wins, he will go second to none other than John Ford for most directing
Oh,
Oscars.
of
oh, this the
course.
100. Then they have to do this, no? Because
That
it's
is
like
that why
just for
is
that,
that
just
why
for that trivia.
Yeah.
it's actually
And
good. I was surprised that throughout his career, this was actually the first film, if I'm not wrong, that he actually premiered at a film festival. That he
yeah,
actually
Oh,
sent at a
really?
film festival rather
yeah,
than just
Toronto.
and it's
Okay,
like okay, he has been eyeing for that
interesting,
Oscar then in that
I
case. So
think it's
interesting.
also the fact that have you guys noticed this? This is the first time Spielberg's finished a film and his next has not been announced yet.
so yeah,
Otherwise, there's always
build
been a
up
Spielberg
that
film in some point of
I
production.
mean,
yeah.
It's
if there is can there be a better farewell sort of? Is that's
no,
also one of
I really
those?
I want him to I want him and Scorsese to like die with their boots on. Like they make a film and they die.
Yeah.
We shouldn't end on that note. We should end on
No,
a
no.
good Spielbergian
No, but
note.
like the Oscars, I feel personally, I don't know what why Aryan feels so strongly for Spielberg.
Hmm.
I would like for McDonough to get it. He's nominated, right?
He's not gonna win.
He's not going to win because
Yeah.
it's too bleak a movie. First of
Yeah.
all, for the Oscars, we don't give such movies Oscars.
Hmm.
And the Daniels are not going to win because it's only their second movie.
I think they might
done
win. Yeah.
Swiss Army Man, and then this Oscars are a पांच picture banao fir denge kind of
Oh,
situation.
that way. Yeah.
It's
But
never
just
been
to, I don't know. See, it's very weird because I think it might end up winning because it would be the safest bet because no one would be offended.
yeah.
What?
So
Everything Everywhere or
no,
Spielberg?
Fabelmans, Spielberg.
Both of them won't.
Because
No one will be offended if Daniel also win. I think.
No, people will be very
people
offended
will be
because
offended.
it's
Really?
a East Asian woman in a film about
Acha, as in
America.
like as in like the
All the
trolls here.
KKK people will be.
The trolls here. Okay,
Yeah.
who takes that seriously?
Or it could just end up winning Best Picture. You never know after
Oh,
Coda.
it will win, no?
Best
Yeah.
Picture, I think
favorite.
they're a lock.
It's the
They're
favorite.
a lock for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Unless Top Gun Maverick suddenly gets
No.
those votes.
I don't think so.
But yeah, that's a different conversation. But I was just going through Best Picture nominees yesterday, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, I'm really scared. I don't want to like know."
You're scared? Why are you scared?
Yeah, because I know that the films that I actually love aren't going to win.
Yeah,
They
but
may
that
either
happens every year, no?
but still,
I remember.
when you have films like Banshees,
Yeah.
then
I think
Banshees,
Banshees will just become one of those movies,
Original
He could have
screenplay,
won.
potentially. It has strong
He,
competition.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's already got one.
Triangle would
screenplay.
win, man. Screenplay Triangle is.
Are you?
McDonough
I'm not
already
even
has one.
kidding. I'm not kidding.
Triangle of Sadness is now winning screenplay.
It's winning. It's
It's
winning.
between Banshees and Tar.
And Tar.
I'm afraid. Because Triangle, I know
Triangle of
different
Sadness won't
conversation,
win,
but
man.
still.
It's so bad.
It has
Like,
to
it's
win
not
something. It has to win something. I hate
No, it
that.
doesn't.
movie.
I know that.
Best picture nomination भी है यार.
वो
You
तो नहीं,
never
but
know.
नहीं जीतेगा. I don't think so. Anyways, why are we talking
Yeah.
about this when
We are
we
not
have
voting
इतना
members.
टेंशन तो Spielberg को भी नहीं है.
नहीं
Box office
Spielberg को क्यों
revenue.
टेंशन होगा? But no, I mean he'll probably win something, right? Fabelmans.
Yeah.
If he wins DGA, he's a lock for the Oscars. They have seldom gone against the DGA. आज है DGA.
Oh, it's today or what? Okay.
Yeah, 18th.
I
of
will
it's
check.
today.
American 18th of February.
Aryan,
Today.
get all
Stream it, lad.
get on the previous winners of DGA and what films they have made for next
I'll
Instagram
make a
post.
list. No,
Yes.
but do they air it anywhere in India?
I don't
Like,
think so.
No, इंडिया में तो नहीं होगा यार. इंडिया में ऑस्कर्स ही एयर हो जाए बड़ी बात है अभी at this
पिछली
point.
बार मैंने पूरा प्रिपेयर किया था ऑस्कर्स के लिए और मैं सो गया सेरेमनी के टाइम पे सो
But
I
I mean,
remember.
has but
I
do you
was
guys?
staying up till like 6 in the morning and Dhruv was
Wow.
asleep.
But
अरे
do you guys like watch regularly?
I watch everything.
Yeah.
I watch
I
everything
watch.
they release. So no,
I,
Aryan,
I took a special subscription just to watch Golden Globes live in India. I took a Lionsgate subscription and I did not even vasool it. I did not end up watching anything else.
No, but
Golden Globes.
I was watching the whole day before the Oscars happened. I was watching the Oscar shorts, and I was like, okay, let me finish through them so that okay, I'll then go and watch the Oscars. But I slept during the show, so I was like, okay. But
Something worse like has happened. I stayed up an entire night. This 2016 Oscars. So
yeah,
who was in the running 2015? Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, I think, won for
Birdman,
Birdman.
No. Which was the other one?
Revenant.
Revenant.
So I woke up. I was like, Oscar. I switched on Star World. I was like, hi, Oscar. Then I said, oh, shit, I'm a day early. I stayed up the entire night
Because of
a day
the
early.
yeah,
was
I
like, oh,
can
shit.
imagine. Right, so
But yeah.
we'll do 100%. We'll be doing an Oscars ka thing. I mean, Aryan, I mean, I want people to be enthusiastic about it because I don't treat them seriously anymore. It's been like
I
2
mean,
years
after
since I've
after the show that Soderbergh produced, I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
it's time to check out the Oscars also. It's
Well, I
terrible.
mean,
Horrendous, yeah.
their landmark year for me will always be Parasite year. After that, whatever, it's fine. Then they've done enough to dismantle that year. Credit. With Green Book was next year, right?
Yeah, 18.
And then what
No,
was
Green Book was the year
Coda was
before.
last year. Oh my God.
Yeah, and they gave
Um,
I don't know Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. I
That
wasn't
was
sold
just
on
one
it.
of those weaker years, though. No, like the
No, but
weaker
I
as
mean,
in like
like you
just the
had.
2020.
I mean, I was a
moment.
big fan of Promising Young Woman. I was like, if you wanted to give a woman an
Aryan,
Oscar, give
go
that
ahead,
movie an
attack.
Oscar.
No, it's okay. He likes Fabelmans.
On that
We
note,
will
I guess,
discuss
right?
about Oscars later.
Yeah, on that note. Thank you so much for listening. I think this was a great episode. We discussed a lot more than Fablemans, I think, like even like previous Spielberg. We know we had a lot more to discuss, in fact. And the other movie which I somewhat referenced but didn't episode we had planned was actually on Armageddon Time and the Fablemans because they are two Jewish filmmakers looking back at their lives in totally different ways, which is my last way of saying please watch Armageddon Time also because no one did. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Varun, for being here. We'll
Thank you so much for
hopefully
having
have
me.
you for other episodes also. There's a lot. I mean, there's always
Yeah.
topics and then there's always things that we want to discuss, and we'd love to have you again.
Thank you so much.
Aryan, we will have you again. I'm not saying we'd love to because I know you will be here. But yes, please follow Varun on Instagram at Cinephile Stock. That's that correct? That's the handle.
Yes.
And on Letterboxd is Varun Oak hyphen Bakay, which is Bakay. Is that right?
Phakay.
Phakay. We will link this in the
Yeah.
description. So I will make sure that. I mean, I won't make sure that people do this because I don't know how many times they read my description, which is kind of disheartening because I actually spent time on it. Aryan, you can follow at Aryan Talks Film on Instagram. And Letterboxd, Aryan, kya hai handle?
Even I don't remember.
Fill
Just
up.
Aryan Talks.
Okay,
It's
at
the same.
Insta. Okay, same thing. Okay, and if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Terminal Cinema on Instagram and same. I forgot my letterbox again. Everything will be in the description. Queen is dead. Any point in promoting that handle is I think not there anymore considering it doesn't like do anything. But anyways,
Why you're
thank you.
writing about a short
Hmm.
film about love and all these
Not
very
on Queen is
complex
dead.
films. Okay, right. Yeah.
क्वीन इज डेड को कहा नहीं
We
मुझे
will
करो
discuss.
फॉलो भाई मुझे करो मैं आई वांट anyways thank you and khatam
Now remember this. When the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit. Now, good luck to you. And get the fuck out of my office.